Roman romantic romance languages as defined by someone somewhere that could compare strange lips in another tongue. This world is not my home, so I strive to thrive, survive to ask why you and I cry out for mercy and others say, "Thank you, sir. Can I have another?" Taking one for the team means a bullet to the head, and your family sent the bill for the bullet. Did you know that's what they did in China? You know, in their great purges and leap forwards, when they suspected somebody, they'd execute them and then they'd send the family the bill. Last night I love the spirit of that show, and I hope it resonated. This is the page I wrote to end my monologue last night. Let's stop pretending the end was not written from the beginning of the book being written then and was finished then. Look at the end. I like it. I love it. We're rescued, and then it's cashed in. This is not our home. Everything we ever could hope or dream for and more is waiting for us in heaven. I can see why wide road Christians just want it to seem like, no, it's easy believism. They don't want any striving or anything. Act like you don't know it. Was a woman recruiting children for the Jeffrey Epstein client list? The whole feminism thing, we got to flip that on its head. Is that really the answer? Or are they the ones we really could trust? Or they're so much better than men. To me, that's kind of like my argument with the people that want to make a few things out of a few verses about Nephilim. So they could be clowns, they could be demons, they could be fallen angels, but whatever it is, they're worse than humans. It's like everything that the Nephilim are accused of, humans have done in spades. We're not the good guys. Anyway, welcome to Flat Earth Nation. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Don't let them tell you anything else unless it's that mud flood was Armageddon. Mud flood was Armageddon. I'm never going to tell you anything else. Don't let anyone tell you anything else. Welcome, Vana. Welcome, soy-free thoughts from down under. We got 4 continents, with 5 people in the house. I got a lot of things to go over tonight. Stick with this. It's going to be monumental. I've got to show this one here, right? Everybody likes, hey, Australia, America, Great Britain, Finland, Estonia. His name will live in history. Lawrence of Arabia.
It will live in the annals of war. It will live in the legends of Arabia.
Who is he? Vitu. Tavas!
Very violent.
What is your name? My name is for my friends.
Shut up.
Lawrence of Arabia, the man torn between 2 civilizations. Lawrence of Arabia, filmed against a canvas of awesome magnificence.
1962, right? Right before Kennedy was shot. This was out. This was part of history. Do anything, lie to their faces, have them, give them enough weapons to fight other Arabs and the Germans, and then get stabbed in the back and then make movies about it, saying, like, man, nobody could lie like Lawrence of Arabia. He had them believing that he loved them.
He was a very great man. He was a poet, a scholar, and a mighty warrior.
He was also the most shameless exhibitionist since Barnum and Bailey.
What, in your opinion, do these people hope to gain from this war?
And here we go. What's he leaning on here? It's 1914, 1915. They drove across the desert to found Israel with, before the Model T, a fleet of Rolls-Royce armored cars, mounted cannons, ready to go over the desert. I'm telling you, this was hidden history, and it was all bought and paid for way before Zionism was planned, before T.E. Lawrence was born. That's a Rolls-Royce, everybody, with some Vickers guns on it.
They hope to gain their freedom.
There's one born every minute.
They're going to get it, Mr. Bentley. I'm going to give it to them.
He rewrites the story to where he really believed that, that he wasn't lying to them and that somehow they'd be better off. It didn't work out too well for them. Oh, but from 6 years ago, anyway, free using here. Should I read it? We are proud of the role that we played in the creation of the State of Israel, and we will certainly mark the centenary with the pride.
Balfour Declaration. But what exactly happened on November 2nd, 1917? And what was the Balfour Declaration all about? These 68 words were a historic promise given to the early Zionist movement by the...
Sir Arthur Balfour. Was he like the governor, the president, or the king's right-hand man?
British government for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. Sir Arthur Balfour, then Foreign Secretary of Britain, wrote in a public letter to a famous British Zionist, Lord Walter Rothschild.
Wait. So he's writing to the Rothschild, who's not in the government. They're making the deal. Now, again, catch, who is Arthur Balfour?
Foreign Secretary of Britain, wrote in a public letter to a famous British Zionist, Lord Walter Rothschild, which read,
His Majesty's government views with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object.
Spoiler alert. What is their best endeavors? Well, lie to them, make treaties and promises, and then stab them in the back and finish them off with smallpox. That's standard operating procedure for these crackers. And I'm saying that in jest. I'm not being racist about it. Otherwise,
by Jews in any other country.
This was just what the Zionists were looking for, as outlined in the first Zionist Congress during its meeting in Basel, Switzerland.
Wow, 1897. But I think we're going to find out it goes back much further. Hey, he looks so modern. It's like looking in a mirror.
Summed it up best when he said, one nation solemnly promised to another nation the country of a third. What were they?
What's the problem? It's these guys. If you're wearing a top hat, you can promise one country to another country, even if it's not your country. You've got top hats. Top hats.
The crown had decided Palestine's for the Jews, thus ensuring a perpetually divided Middle East.
I don't think that. You think that's what they wanted, a perpetually divided Middle East? Well, they got it. Do we recognize anybody in this picture?
But it's not 100% certain that this was the initial goal of the British government. The results have brought devastating consequences to the Middle East. It paved the way for the longest military occupation in recent history and destabilized and
I'm telling you, and you know what I think, there is only our recent history and the lies they tell about it to cover up our super racist, genocidal apartheid. Ever since Satan has been loose, white people have been out of control. It's no wonder that the other billions of people hate us. We've got to change. We can't expect them to keep making our cell phones and to be happy to get their dollar a day. It's not fair. My lunch break, he's got it all figured out, and to them this is brand new. You know, he's done 80 shows. I had another channel with almost 6,000 videos taken down. But these guys are, oh, it's late to the party, and of course they're going to take it to not the Bible.
I'm leaning towards that, but like I said, it's important to ask questions. Could there have been or still be a species that is off limits to the public, a species that thrive underground, where we are told that the earth was destroyed first by fire and then by ice, and one earth world, the old world, passed?
Do you see above the arrow there? One line. When the ant people rescued the Native Americans. So, you know, he's honestly going there. Could there be ant people? It's not that these catacombs were built by people that were listening to Jesus that said, flee to the mountains, they're going to melt, and the safest place is to be inside a mountain. But no. We got to go to the Navajo, the Arapaho, so I can say aho.
For humans again.
This is quite a famous phenomenon. There are huge cities. They look like...
Right. And so it's not like when this was brought out, it wasn't discussed between Doug and I and a few others that there's going to be a lot of denominations and a lot of people are going to use this information for their own, but the truth has to come out, and it did. And well, the Bible's true, and they've been planning this whole Zionist cover up that the MAGA people, you know, Israel can't do anything wrong to a lot of MAGA people. You know, look at, there's Stalin. What's wrong about this picture? Well, usually for all the years right before this, that wouldn't be Mao Zedong. That would be Chiang Kai-shek, the big four. FDR, Winston Churchill, Chiang Kai-shek, and Joe Steele. Did you know that Stalin, that means steel in the Despotania, in Russian. So his name basically is a stage name, Joe Steele. Sure.
General Joseph Stalin. The terms of the treaty, however, would be tilted against China's favor. This plants the seeds of mistrust.
Okay, so even they had to, you know, and this is in the 60s. So they've been ruling their countries for 20 years. And China's been held down. But and they know it, and they're ready to fight back.
Mao condemns Khrushchev for what he terms cowardice in the Caribbean. Khrushchev retaliates by severing all ties with China.
Yeah, well, they're friends again. Now they're friends again. I want to look at the pictures. So we might stumble across some of these things today. Did you see this there? I guess this here is supposed to be the 12 apostles. I don't know what Zeus or Neptune is doing in the front, but this is supposed to be a mockery. It's what the French think is funny to do in the Olympics, I guess. Gonna run around with your wanger hanging out on TV, crying out loud. So anyway, so you can see you got a fleet of these Rolls Royces that they drove across the desert to found Israel in the distraction of World War I when they were forming all the nations, getting the nations. That's what Satan wanted. I'm studying this. I had made a little time to go like, wow, this is so fascinating. I should mention it. So I'm only going to mention it. We're not going to get into it too much, but super cool. So that's Antarctica. That's the top of the flat Earth, top of the globe. That's what they say. So they got it all figured out, you know, in between these distances, 10,000 times the golden meme. Yeah, they got it all figured out. Rolls-Royce, a used Rolls-Royce is $332,000. Railroad workers who saw it as a threat to their security of employment, they destroyed it. So I guess the Luddites were destroying electric trains, direct drive reluctance motors. That's an electric train. It was tested the following year, but the limited power from the batteries prevented its general use. It was destroyed by the railroad workers who said, no, wait a minute. That's like, what are we going to do if a robot takes over my job? And they could teach the robot to say, would you like fries with that? Supersize them, baby. Hey, there's Lawrence of Arabia. He had a guilty conscience because of the way they made him backstab. And so he wrote a book about it and explained, you know, man, I didn't want to backstab these people. And he died in a motorcycle wreck after this picture. This is one of those Rolls-Royce motorcycles that they took on their trip. He fell in love with them. There's a somewhat of a replica. I don't think that's the real deal, but yeah, Lawrence of Arabia used to be a thing that everybody go like, oh man, look at that, 1915, 1916. While this Gallipoli was going on, they were in Africa with the Rolls-Royce armored car that was a mystery. For a while, everybody's going like, why don't you tell us about the car? So they got the internet going, and then they did. Look at this. Dark matter explains the image of the Shroud of Turin. Can it? Could it? It appears it can. Mud Fossil University. There is no such thing as dark matter, Roger. There's no dark matter. There's no quantum physics. Wish you would not want to go to be famous at Harvard. You know, I use this as a thumbnail on what I thought was a very spirit-led. This machine kills fascist. You know that everybody knows that he wrote that song. This land is your land. This land is my land. I suppose the old man Trump knows just how much radical hate he stirred up in the blood spot of human hearts when he draw that color line here at his Beach Haven Family Project. Yeah, it's these Trumps, man. From even when the Woody Guthrie was alive and he was against the fascism, he was talking about Donald Trump's dad, or nobody liked those guys except MAGA people. It's not easy being a shorty.
قرنين وأكثر والحركة الصهيونية المسيحية غير اليهودية ابتدأت قبل الصهاينة اليهود بالادعاء إنه فلسطين لا يوجد فيها أحد، شراذم بدو، شراذم فلاحين، لا يوجد شعب ولا يوجد حضارة، لا يوجد زراعة، والإزاء والأخبار أنه لا يوجد شيء في فلسطين يستحق الذكر. هذا سبق حتى مولد هرزل هذا الكلام.
In December 1947, the British announced that their mandate for Palestine would end 5 months later. This led to increased violence by armed Zionist Jewish groups. On the 14th...
It does, if it doesn't seem like I'm kind of picking on the Zionists, maybe.
In worse political conflicts than what already existed in that time, and soon enough everybody in Europe were in war with each other, also affecting the different colonies of the superpowers during World War I. The Ottoman Empire, which at its peak controlled large areas of Middle East, North Africa and Balkan, would soon take side in this war, after losing several important territories.
So this would have been the end of the 1,000-year reign, I think. I think 1711 is when it actually ended. I think the Germans were all set up and ready to go.
City of San Remo to discuss how they could create even more states. They want
by states they mean nations, because everything was city-states and little kingdoms, and what they needed a united nation. This is President Wilson, who's spent most of this term overseas, and then his wife ran the government after he had a stroke. He's quoted a lot as being one of the most racist persons that ever lived. Not only the racist president, but in that D.W. Griffith movie about the South will rise again, he's quoted in that a number of times. Going like, yeah, they're black animals with no souls and things like that. It's not a quote.
Wanted to share the different territories from the Ottoman Empire between themselves. However, in Syria the Arabs had started their own uprising and refused to be part of the French ruled by Faisal bin Hussein.
So the French, everybody's in on it. Wow, and this guy's claiming there's a war on the masculine and the feminine.
One individual's sickness has a butterfly effect rippling out to infect the entire organism. We're all pulled down into the collective muck to varying degrees. This is a very new sickness. At no other point in our history as a species have we fallen so far from a natural view of the world and our place within it. So how did this happen? And how do we turn the tide? As with so many of the unnatural recent changes in culture...
You don't turn the tide. Like I said, this book that you're living in, the end is written from the beginning. Our culture is taken away and we're not getting it back. They're going to only want to kill you more and more as you stand up and go, these guys, they did it. What is the Havara? Havara, not Vaara, our friend from Finland. This is the Havara Agreement. It was an agreement between the Nazi Germany and the Zionists that were living in Germany, and they were Jews. And they signed it in 1933. Got this bank that's still in existence, founded in 1992 for 1902 for this purpose. What? Well, get the Zionist Federation of Germany and Hitler to pay for 60,000 Jews to say, if you quit boycotting us, will you Jews finally leave? And we're going to, you can go to that country that the English planned for you in World War I. What is the background here? Within the Nazi movement, a variety, increasingly radical solutions to the Jewish question were proposed. Well, one of them was, let's buy them out and send them to that Palestine place, because they're boycotting and, they're just being a big hassle. Super big hassle, man, dealing with these people. So the Reich Economic Ministry said, let's do it. Like, I think they even got I think if you searched that, then go to the images, they even have coins celebrating it. Usually they want you to be like, celebrate, celebrate. The commemorative coin of the Havara Transfer Agreement of 1933. They're so happy that they made an agreement between the Nazi Germany and the Zionist German Jews, signed on the 25th of August, finalized after 3 months of talks, and the economic authorities of Nazi Germany. The agreement was designed to help facilitate the immigration of German Jews to Palestine. There you go. While it helped the Jews immigrate, it forced them to temporarily give up their possessions in Germany. Well, I think they thought that was a pretty good deal because, well, these were the ones, the lucky ones. The other ones that got left behind, I think they ended up doing that whole run for your life thing, you know. There was also a Madagascar plan, which was another proposed plan by Nazi Germany saying, look, man, we paid to have them go to Palestine. How about we just buy the island of Madagascar and send the Jews there? We could forcibly relocate them, you know, because this is getting silly. Super crazy, man. What are we going to talk about? Lawrence of Arabia, the 1927 Crimean earthquakes, I suppose it was really bad. Submarine earthquake. Oh, it happened on September 11th. I probably can't get that out of my mind again. But this was a big deal. It was right by that Yalta where they did that whole, they planned the Bretton Woods thing. See what else we got. September 11th, Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. Is that a big deal? These all happened on September 11th. Stirling Bridge. I've heard of William Wallace. Teutonic Knights. So some of these are things that happen. Did I just see the winged hussars? I'm going to show you those guys. They kind of look like the American natives, you know, when they had their feathers flying behind them. First race at the mile, World War I, something. Forced Russification of Finland, September 11th. It's September 11th, a big deal. Hurricane Edna, Hurricane Carla. But we know 2001 and 2011, you know, the anniversary, they had the Benghazi U.S. Embassy. Not much of a link there about the attack, is it? The Polish Hussars. So yeah, these guys, they would scare people when they rushed into battle with these feathers flying over their head. Scary. It's pretty an elaborate sword, right? I mean, once again, it's that golden age stuff. I think they rode horses not because they couldn't figure out internal combustion. It's that to them, it was a dirty, not good thing. You know? So they like to ride mules and horses because it's, you know, I think they were, you know, they were kind of like that. Here's that. We'll just look at, here's that, you know, those caves I showed you. They're carved inside these type of granite blocks. Isn't that crazy? This is the kind of things they were doing, you know, a couple thousand years ago for fun. Well, you saw the pictures. These are, and the math of these things, wow, it's crazy hard. How do we know they're telling us the truth about what we're reading? Anyway, they were inclined to do it, and they did it for a reason. And the stones are crying out. That's yesterday's. Lucky Luciano, the mob, that's yesterday. So look how fast we're going. Yesterday. T.E. Lawrence, also known as Lawrence of Arabia, is a well-known figure in history due to his role in the Arab Revolt during World War I with those Rolls-Royce armored cars. Born in 1888, moved to Oxford when he was young. Basically, middle-class upbringing, and studied the seven, he wrote books later, died on a motorcycle crash. Do you believe that? That's like a Rolls Royce of motorcycles. You go, 100 miles an hour back in 1925. So I just wanted to show you that this company, Rolls Royce of motorcycles, owned and operated by them, famous for that. Racer designer, 1908. They needed these to cross the Sahara to get the Arabs their surprise attacks and things like that. So the idea I'm looking for you to connect with is how long, they were preparing, getting the companies to make money off of what they were going to do anyway. And the history of hybrid electrics. I showed you that one picture. The land speed record until around 1900 was an electric vehicle, and it was over 100 miles an hour, I believe. And the Stanley steamers, they could go over 100. I don't know. I kind of was looking for, dates and things like that. 1880, 1881. It says here's storing electricity, 1859, 1834, about the similar contraption. That's an interesting word, isn't it? So, really, what do we know? They were looking for something besides burning oil. Steam power and electricity was the way to go, but Standard Oil and the people that did the world wars wanted to sell oil, and they still do. And you love it. I love it. The American people love it. We can't get enough of it. Look at that one. That's a battery. So is that. Ditto, battery. This is what's going. This one looks like it's going faster than the horse, but the horse is still rolling, rolling, rolling. Battery. Nice old world. Is that antique architecture? Antique tech? First police car, 1899. Let's talk more about that Zionism. History of motorcycles. Okay. Wow. Okay. 1894. So really recent history is recent history. But when they released, these things in the 1890s, 1906, they started a company called Rolls Royce. And within 10 years, they've got an armored car that can drive across the Sahara to find a new Palestine. Come on now, people. Smile on your brother. So they finally just started admitting, okay, yeah, look, we do have some info on this armored car. We know it's been a mystery and we didn't want to talk about it, but the cat's out of the bag. There it is. The Rolls-Royce armored car, British armored car, developed in 1914. Well, wow. And I made that reference to the Model T, the Model A. They couldn't make these. They still don't make these on a assembly line. These things are expensive. And that's what I noticed. It's like, wait a minute, the same companies, they did the Vickers machine gun. This thing, this killed more than any other weapon, I think, in World War One. And they basically used it until the 1960s, until they just made some new improvements on it. Same companies, same founding, same to make money, because they don't want to leave a penny on the table. They don't want to leave a penny on the table. That's a big gun of .303. The 223 is what the M16 uses. These automobiles are brand new, but they needed something. So they probably, we're going to roll this one off the assembly line early, make you a brigade of them. And we got this plan for Zionism, 2 of the 13. And that's the Irish Civil War. That was an important one. They're still fighting that to the day. To the day. They planned all of this. Now they finally discovered this is that 2017 again, finally discovered the identity of Lawrence of Arabia's Rolls Royce. Why were they keeping it a secret? I guess they keep secrets about these guys that try to assassinate presidents too, because it seems like they just don't want to tell the truth about anything. So then they had Dragonfly, Silver Dawn, White Knave. The car was delivered in 1909. So one of the first things, ready to go drive across the desert. Light them up. We got an armored car. The mystery solved. That's good. Now, when you look up Rolls-Royce, and this is their page of, okay, well, where it doesn't say armored cars. I looked for so many different ways to find it, but they didn't have it. Luxury cars, that's, they want above average comfort. It's not enough just to have a comfortable car. They, social status says, my car is so much better than your car. And I can afford it and you can't. And when they're talking about it, I mean, they really, what they pay for a car would be your dream house. My dream house was the price of one of their cars. What? Look at this one. There were some rich people that really wanted above average cars. That's like a Jay Leno wants that. Bentley, that's a subsidiary of Rolls-Royce. That's the Mussolini, the fascist Mussolini. That's one of his, probably a Fiat cousin. That's a Cadillac, not a pink Cadillac. I'm just showing you there's some fancy cars out there, huh? So anyway, this building was their first building, 1906. They decided, let's start making some luxury cars, and later we'll make the aero engines, in Manchester. Charles Rolls and Henry Royce. And now their name is synonymous with kick ass. jet engines, First World War made them rich. Boy, they founded it right in time. This isn't even the money they made off the machine guns that they sold in 1980 because they made a ton off it anyway. Where would they be? Only Coca-Cola is more widely known than Rolls-Royce. They planned it. From the war to the original Silver Ghost chassis on a new semi Rodebe open tour body by Baker. Now, that's just a lot. Wow. That'll fly a plane even today. Enough with the Rolls Royce. Okay, really? You want to get into this? Those are not wings. It's not an angel. That's a girl. It's fabric. It's fabric flowing. The wind is blowing it back. This is supposed to be a very famous ecstasy, spirit of ecstasy. We got a whole Wikipedia page about it. Look at there it is, right there. Eleanor posing next to a silver ghost, 1911. On the hood, you see the spirit of ecstasy. Silver shadow. Let's get that side view. I always thought it was wings, but then they told me, nope, it's her dress fabric or something. That's supposed to be, that doesn't look like ecstasy to me. Like I'm an expert on what ecstasy looks like. Anyway, it's famous because it's Rolls-Royce. You know what else is famous? The engineering company that from 1828 to 1999 made casting church bells. When they needed church bells, they had a company to do it. When they needed to go like, okay, let's kick it up a notch and start making machine guns. Well, in 1911, they said, let's do it. Let's get in there. Let's put them on airplanes and let's put them in submarines. Let's just put the Vickers machine gun everywhere. Wow. And you got to do it. And I mean, looks like as long as it provides jobs, and we're making machine guns because we got, who would want to go to war against a machine gun? It's a weapon of peace. The British Army formally adopted the Vickers machine gun as its standard machine gun pretty quickly, November 1912. But it changed it. It changed the world, put them on the airplane, everything that, and they didn't give them away. They sold them to these British expeditionary forces. They didn't mention the Lawrence of Arabia one anymore. It's not that popular. So I just looked at some of the other ones, and it's just your basic World War I, First Army, Second Army, Kirchner's Army, Fifth Reserve, Battle of the Frontiers. Okay. Race to the Sea, Trench Warfare. Recent history. India. They forced India. We own you, so you're being drafted now. Kind of like people are going to be drafted for NATO pretty soon from the rumor mill. Not like I'm spreading the rumor mill, but kind of. Church bells by the Vickers company, huh? Well, just church bells in general became a thing, huh? Call to prayer. People like bells. Old Testament like bells. Sometimes people overdo it, right? Look at this. Full circle bells. Exorcism of demons. The ringing of church bells is traditionally believed to drive out demons and unclean spirits. Wow. Okay. It's that easy? You don't need to do prayer and fasting for some of them? Rolls-Royce made submarines? No, not like that. Submarines. Rolls-Royce Submarines is a subsidiary, operates 3 sites licensed to handle nuclear material. That's what a submarine is. The manufacturing site was licensed in 1960, pretty close to 1958, deals with processing of uranium fuel and fabrication of Rolls-Royce PWR nuclear reactor cores. Okay. For the Navy submarine. So they're helping make the engines that drive the submarines. I guess you could call it a Rolls-Royce submarine. Nuclear submarine. I guess they're expensive too. You can practically charge anything you want. Here's that building again. First, kind of looks like an old world building there. Is that Art Deco? You know, there's a building underneath it, right? Probably down here too. Probably everywhere you look in this street. They say everywhere. There's just break through it. You're going to find tunnels, bathhouse, during Kiryu. This was, I just thought, Lily Hall. I'll look it up. It lasted until 1968. Arranged, Bill Frost, he must be a famous Rolls-Royce person, arranged the closing ceremony because this is where one of their first, I'll show you, outside its famous doors. It's unclear, though later, when it was demolished. But by the time of 2018, it was clearly long since gone. But they do know that something was there in 1968. Should it be that hard? You're talking about a Rolls-Royce, and this is a former ice rink used as the very first Rolls-Royce showroom. Want to buy a Rolls-Royce? Go to the old ice rink. And then when it closed down in 1968, it was a big deal. And then they don't know what happened to it or when or what. But remember, this was 1906. These gas-operated engines were brand new because these were not electric. These were not steam, the ones that went across the desert. Got one Bible verse here. Who's the topmost? Who's the God most high? When we look at, a verse like this, just to refresh your memory with, that there is, we know now, I guess there was Jesus incarnated as an Elohim. There were other Elohims. That's why he's the begotten. But the spirit that David and Solomon said, we're going to build you this temple, but we understand there's no temple we can build big enough for you, because he is that spirit that might even be the ether in the water and everywhere all the time, knowing nothing but complete power and understanding. This is El Elyon. He is the God Most High, the God Most High. He was the priest of the God Most High. That's who Melchizedek was. And that's who El Elyon is. He's that spirit God. We have an incarnate God, and we have a whole religion of, fake Jews. There can be no other way of saying it if you believe the Bible like I do. And it says that, let his blood be upon us and our children. Because Jesus came with the winnowing fork in his hand to judge Israel. because they had broke covenant, and he came with the winnowing fork in his hand. He's going to do it all. Oh, that he wished the fire was already kindled, he said. This book is in from the beginning. We're at a point right now where we were lost sinners and deserved hell, but our hearts were changed, and now we love God, and we're going to work for him the rest of our life, not to be saved, but because he wants us to be working for him, practicing righteousness the rest of our lives. We have to be careful how we teach this Havara agreement and everything else. It's a landmine out there, and it's only going to get worse. It's not going to make America great. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it so much. Want to remind you what I wish I couldn't read and talk at the same time. This was very distracting to me. A Matchbox thing would be worth $5,000. Oh my goodness. That's, look on eBay. These people, anything old is new. I've said it before. Why are some old Levi's from the 1950s, they say before 1958, going for $2,000? Well, they're that rare because that was a different world, people. And this is a flat earth nation. And its golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. Me and my friends, we're never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? We were called, chosen, trying to be faithful and proving that we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Avida Zeta. Nakamega. Bye. Adios, amigos.